Can you try to translate that into English? İki eşik orası.
Okay. I have a question real quick. Ishik. Is that to do with ishak? No?
IELTS speaking bo'yicha ekspertlardan biri Alex, a TESOL certified IELTS expert. Do you have to go to an English speaking country?
The answer is no.
It took me years, not just 1 year, years to get to this level.
You know what he's saying, and he's actually speaking the real language. He's not saying gibberish. He's not going, I think that music is the next great way to work on language acquisition.
Oshga chiqib keladi endi.
Osh, no osh. Is this Dumba?
It is Dumba, exactly.
Oh my god.
Guess the score.
7.5. Yes? No, more or less?
7.
What?
Yeah.
Do the math right now. Go. Do the math.
All right. 210 multiplied by 7. Sorry. Assalomu alaykum barchaga. Bugun mana BM Talks loyihamizni navbatdagi sonida o'tiribmiz. Kechagina biz o'sha 1-oktyabr o'qituvchilar kunini nishonladik. Agar oralaringda o'qituvchilar bo'lsa, o'tib ketgan bayramlaring bilan tabriklayman. Bugungi demak o'sha loyihamiz bugungi sonini mehmoni bizda demak o'sha IELTS speaking bo'yicha ekspertlardan yana biri Alex, a TESOL certified IELTS expert with a perfect band 9.
That's me.
Yeah. So, welcome to the show, Alex.
Thank you so much.
By the way, we'll be doing this in English, just simply because, mostly in English. So, anyway, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. I got to correct you on one thing. Unfortunately, my 9 is not perfect yet.
Oh, okay, yeah, all right. I was gonna say a perfect over. Yeah, it's not.
Yeah,
well,
the standards are higher
of all
now.
people, I know what you're trying to say, but
that's fair.
Okay.
Yeah. You know, it's kind of crazy. Like before, perfect 9 was you.
Overall 9.
Exactly.
That's what I meant. Yeah.
But now it's much more scary. We gotta raise our standards. We gotta keep going.
Okay. Yeah. Are you planning to?
I
didn't want to talk about it, but since you brought it up,
I mean, we have to. You're the first 9er. I'm the 7th 9er. Like Ronaldo.
You're number 7.
Number 7. Who else do we know who's number 7? Exactly.
The GOAT, right?
Ronaldo's biggest fan. That's me.
Okay.
But seriously, it's kind of scary. People are always pushing things forward, and I think that's great. Yeah.
Quadruple 9s, right? 4 9s. Yeah. Quadruple 9s. Quadruple 9er. That's in a way that qualifies as a perfect 9, right? In a way. But what I meant to say was you have an overall 9 and a 9 for speaking.
Of course.
I think, right?
Yeah.
So since we start talking about a 9 overall, let's talk about like how, came to achieve that.
Sure.
Yeah. Share your experience with our viewers.
Yeah. So I'm going to start by really talking about the test. I want to tell you guys. For me, the first time I took the test, I was really stressed. I'm kind of anxious as a person, so when I first took the test, I was really worried about it. And honestly, every time since, I've also been worried about it. Like every time you enter the exam atmosphere, it kind of gets to you. Do you ever feel that, like, kind of a little bit of worry?
Yeah, you always get a little, more anxious, I think, still.
It doesn't even matter how many times you take it, it's just the atmosphere itself makes you worry.
Especially the speaking test, right?
Exactly. Just a little bit, having somebody judge you.
Exactly.
And I would say that other than that, right, other than the fact that I was worried, really, the way that I prepared was I read online. I read online about a bunch of stuff. I had, enough time to prepare. And, my secret...
When was the first time you took the test? Like, do you remember the
first time was 2019.
Oh, okay.
2019. It was a while ago. Back in the day, yeah.
Okay.
And my first test I got like 8.5, then 8.5, then 8.5, then 8.5.
Yeah, a bunch of
4
times.
Yeah. Exactly, and then 9. So my real secret, and I'm sorry if not everybody will be able to relate, but I grew up with English, and English was the first language that I learned to speak. I am a native speaker, so it was kind of easier for me in some ways, but also in other ways, it was way more difficult. Like, for example, writing task 2. For native speakers, the task of creating a simple essay which answers the task completely can be really hard. It's not just difficult for non-native speakers. It's difficult for everybody because it's a task. So
Right.
writing task 2 is actually one of my biggest problems. Task 1 and task 2 as well, where you have to answer the question correctly. You have to answer it in the right way. And I had to train and work on that to get a 9. That was my
Right,
biggest thing.
right,
And actually, I got to say, Big Zod helped me with that a
Yeah.
lot. We
With the
worked
task
on
1,
it.
I think.
With task 1 especially, yeah.
Yeah,
Task 2
yeah.
was like, all right, but task 1 was terrible, yeah.
Task 1 requires, I think, specific understanding of like how you should maybe formulate your response in a way, yeah. But he was really curious. He was willing to learn. So yeah, it was good old times, huh? Back, I think we had like a couple of sessions.
That was a while ago, yeah.
Yeah. It was like, when did you get your 9? Like, what was the
Last
date?
year.
Last
year.
like-
I don't remember the date. I should remember the date. I am.
The video you screaming went viral, right? Like
That was a good video. I don't think you should pull it up, but that was a good video.
no. I'm not going to. But they could probably, if they want to.
I hope not, but you could.
It's on my
theoretically.
channel.
It's there. It's there.
All right. So now let's move on to your teaching style. So can you tell us? Do you mostly teach online, or do you have some offline classes as well?
Sure. Yeah. So I actually used to work at IELTSZone, and it was a really, really cool time. The people at IELTSZone were fantastic. I mean, they still are fantastic. The people. You got to be careful with your tenses, guys. But it was really fun to work there. But over time, I realized that offline isn't really my thing. I'm more of an online kind of guy, I enjoy the experience of teaching online. There's like a variety of reasons for it. I mean, you kind of do both, right? You teach online and offline, mostly offline.
Mostly offline. I started off, teaching offline, face-to-face, let's say face-to-face, right? And then due to, I think, COVID-19, I had to kind of adjust and start doing some online marathons.
For me, the biggest thing is when you're teaching online, there's a bit more creativity and kind of in a different way, right? When you're teaching offline, if you're a creative teacher, your students will love you. A creative offline teacher creates like 10,000 different activities for one task. And maybe they'll print out some pictures, they'll use like Kahoot or something. There's a bunch of stuff you can do to make
ways,
exactly to make the lesson more engaging. But as an online teacher, you have the opposite problem. You have to decide which things you're going to be doing to eliminate distractions. Rather than creating distractions, you're eliminating them. So you gotta.
Wow, that's a great insight.
Yeah, you gotta present the information in a way that they will not lose their attention at any point. Which also includes, of course, things like Kahoot, maybe sending some pictures, doing things like that. But the process itself, the philosophy behind it is like the opposite. I think that's.
How about the duration of the lesson? Like with face-to-face lessons, I think it typically ranges from an hour and a half to 2 hours.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But do you think when you're teaching online, can you hold your students' attention for that long, or do you need to have like shorter, I don't know?
That's a very interesting thing, because usually I think about it from the perspective of myself. Like for me, I don't want to teach for 1.5 hours. I want to teach for 1 hour. I get bored, right? But now that you bring it up, I feel like it could be that students don't really have that much attention. So
because in the classroom, I think like they're forced to sit there, right?
Exactly. I do want to bring up an interesting study. I don't know the exact statistics, but as far as I know, there has been like a bunch of research and a bunch of evidence that people who are working, not studying, but working, similar, similar, they have significantly better results when they are working at home. Offices don't give you any benefits, as far as I understand.
Yeah.
So maybe we'll find out in a couple of years that learning online is way more effective. Maybe we won't. I don't know yet.
Yeah. But so what are some of the things that you do to keep your students maybe, I wouldn't say glued to their screen, but hold their attention?
Yeah. I would say 2 things. Let's say theoretically, I'm giving advice to like a novice online teacher. 2 things. Regularly ask questions. Pretend that you're having a conversation with someone.
Right. Okay.
Because
instead of just lecturing, right?
Exactly. You're talking to them, and you can actually read their messages while you're talking. You are able to say what they're writing. And then the second thing is, depending on what platform you're using, for example, Telegram, there's always going to be some features you could use to spice up the lessons. So recently I've been working on introducing polls, which is like, the questionnaire on Telegram. So that kind of stuff, giving the student the ability to like cast their vote and then, compare their results or their guess to others. That's kind of cool.
Yeah. Now, you mentioned that you're a native speaker, you acquired language growing up, right?
Yes.
We had to learn the language in a different way from books. So let's now talk about the difference between being a native speaker and a non-native speaker in terms of taking the IELTS test or maybe even teaching, right?
Well, there are many differences. I can tell you one thing, or I will start with one thing, which is the thing that's like most pressing for me right now, and that is grammar. I actually don't know grammar as well as you. I can tell you that right away. Maybe I have a better sense for grammar. So if there's like a sentence that's
you can feel what's correct. Yeah.
So for me, what I've really been working on as much as possible is going through grammar books, starting from the beginning, because I have to understand what students are going through if I want to teach them as well as possible.
Okay. What are some grammar books or reference books that you're using then as a teacher?
I am going with the things that are most popular for students, and obviously I haven't gone through everything yet. The first thing that I started working with is Murphy. The red book, the blue book. Yeah. So that's the first thing, and also I have some other like full grammar reference resources, which are like really dense.
Yeah.
They're too dense for me right now. Maybe I'm too dense for them. We don't know. So that's my biggest thing.
Yeah, it's a good point, because we start off with grammar for some reason, right? Especially back in the day when I was learning a language. Raymond Murphy's Grammar News was the first grammar book that we had to start with, especially the intermediate version, the level. It's interesting that you mentioned, right? But you also did TESOL, right?
Yes.
Course for teachers.
Absolutely. So I did take TESOL. We had like a section on grammar there, but the thing is, it's like a 3 or 4 month course. That's not really enough time to catch up on everything. I had the basics down. I passed the grammar test, but in reality, learning to teach grammar is, I don't want to say a lifelong process, because I don't want to, put myself into that for the rest of my life.
Your first, priority should be teaching grammar,
it's
right?
Not. In a way, yeah. It's more of like a background thing. I started with this because that's the most pressing thing for me.
Because students sometimes ask questions.
Exactly, and you got to have a good answer. You got to be able to explain that, and not just because students ask questions, but because you want to be able to explain it to them before they have to ask the question. So obviously,
yeah. And then we do have grammar aspect in the IELTS. Yes. The speaking and the writing sections. So
I feel like that comes to me a bit more naturally than like grammar during lessons, because while I'm speaking, I enjoy embellishing and adding different elements and making it look sparkly or sound sparkly and beautiful. But when you're actually teaching, it's a whole different thing. You have to break it down, you have to construct it and deconstruct it and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. So now let's talk about maybe again the difference between language learning and language acquisition. How would you, tell our viewers what are the main differences between?
That's a great topic. So that's probably one of my favorite topics, because I think I might have some interesting insights into that. I've actually been really into languages for a long time. I know English, as you guys can tell. Probably, maybe, who knows? Write down in the comments if I know English or not. And I've learned Japanese for a while. I was interested in learning Swedish for some period of time. I never got into it. Swedish is too scary for me right now. And Russian and Uzbek, as I've been living here in Uzbekistan for like 5 years. I've been literally inside the atmosphere 24/7, which is the best way to learn a language. So that actually brings us on to the point about like immersion versus sorry, not immersion, my apologies. Acquisition.
It's the same word, yeah.
It's the same word, yeah. Acquisition.
Versus learning, yeah.
Acquisition, how do you say that in Uzbek? What does acquisition translate to?
Egellamak, egellash. So tilni egellash, acquire. So you're acquiring the language, right?
Yeah.
So you're you possess it, you kind of pick it up, yeah.
You're not learning it. I really like the way you said, like, pick it up.
Yeah.
Like, when you acquire it, you're not putting it into your head and forcing it in. You're just taking it. It's in the atmosphere. It's around you. It's there. But you take the things you want and the things you need. And I've realized that that's what's been happening to me. So
with Uzbek and Russian.
With Uzbek and Russian, exactly.
Yeah.
Russian, I've
so I'm going to test your Uzbek, right?
That's going to happen today. We're going to be testing my Uzbek. I'm most likely going to fail, but if I'm out on the street, I will not fail.
Yeah,
that's different.
Yeah, language learning and language acquisition. All right. So another question is. Back in the day, for example, I was an exchange student in the United States. So to me, I think both of these things happened, right?
Yeah.
I was learning the language, I think, before going to the US, and then I found myself in the US, like in the atmosphere. I was immersed with language, and then I had to pick it up, I think, especially with the, you know, the pronunciation and stuff. So now with the internet and technology, right, AI, do you think students, like living in Uzbekistan, can they create an atmosphere where they can, you know, expose themselves to the language? What do you think? Do you think it's easier, relatively easier now, given the advance in technology?
Yeah. So I think that question is a bit loaded. I feel like that's a lot of stuff. Let's break it down. Let's break it down. Let's slow down for a bit. So to answer your question, absolutely yes. Not even a doubt about it. You know.
The question was, do you have to go to an English-speaking country?
The answer is no. To that, the answer is no.
Okay.
So let's do this. Let's stop at you know, you and your experience with living abroad.
Yeah.
I think that's one of the coolest things that you mentioned, that you weren't just acquiring it, you were doing both.
Right. Yeah.
I think the reason is because English is not your first language.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Of course. Definitely.
Uzbek or Russian or whatever other languages you knew prior to English actively stopped you from acquiring all of English.
Maybe.
Unfortunately,
in a way,
you're not a baby.
Yeah.
I'm not a baby.
Right.
And most likely, most of the audience are also not babies. When you're a baby...
we were past the critical age.
Exactly. The critical age where you can acquire without actually struggling for it. So I think that's the main reason why, even though you lived abroad and you were immersed and like you were in an acquisition atmosphere, you weren't able to do everything just through acquisition.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah. So that's what I think. That's what I think is really interesting. Living abroad is not necessary for acquiring a language, but being immersed in an atmosphere where that language exists and having that language around you, maybe not 24/7, but at least more than 2 hours a day, is definitely the best way to start language acquisition.
So can we now create, like, again, given the, you know, if you could somehow, right, watch English movies, talk to your friends in English, what are some ways? What are some ways that you can recommend?
Let's do this. Let's do like one at a time. So I'll share one method that people can use to start acquiring language, and you'll share one as well, and we'll kind of go one by one.
All right.
So I'll start, and this is my #1 favorite method. I think this is probably the best method because this is the method that I use to maintain my language. Anytime I feel like I'm getting worse at English, I don't use enough interesting, you know, vocabulary. I don't maybe express myself in an idiomatic enough way. I do this. I watch YouTube videos. Sometimes, if you look at my phone, if you look at the statistics on my YouTube, you can see that I watch up to 10 hours of YouTube per day.
A day, wow.
A day.
10 hours.
Now keep in mind, my eyes are still here. I don't watch, right? I listen to it.
Yeah, just listen.
Most of it is listening, kind of like podcasts, maybe like a video about some certain topic. But that's what I do. That's my favorite method, and I believe that this method would work for anybody because there are so many different YouTube videos about like whatever topic you want. So if you're trying to acquire a language, rather than learning it, studying with books, you know, Murphy or Headway or Speak Out, any book you want to use, try YouTube. That's my first recommendation.
Hey, that's input. You're getting input, right? And then it probably helps you with your output as well. It's like productive. So you're receiving information, right, in English, and then you're kind of putting it out. Okay, since you mentioned YouTube, I think I'm gonna go for maybe trying to think in English. Like that's, I think that's what was happening to me when I was in the States. We had a booklet of some sort. Like it was given to us as on the orientation day, right? So it's like how to handle these English conversations, how to maybe learn the language or somehow, right, talk to native speakers.
What was in it? What was in
so there was some piece of advice. So one of the advice I think given there was like, you need to start thinking in English, right? Somehow get into habit of talking to yourself in English or start thinking in English. That would make the whole, you know, language journey easier. And I tried that, and it would give me like headaches, right, for days on end, like because you find yourself like you're talking to your friends, classmates, because you know, like I was in an American high school, and they talk a lot, right? It's just and they do a lot of, you know, they make a lot of jokes, they talk a lot, and then you have to be sitting there listening. And at the same time, and then I started thinking that was another extra work, right, for me. So what ended up happening was I was at an intermediate level, I think, back then. So around like Band 6 level, right, in terms of IELTS. So, and it was still possible. Like, I started seeing progress. Like, it was easier for me to communicate in English because even though I wasn't speaking to someone, I was still kind of thinking in English.
Yeah.
So I ended up dreaming in English as well at some point.
That's crazy.
And I actually saw my parents because I missed home. So I saw my parents talking to me in English, which never happens like in real life.
That's
right?
fantastic.
Yeah.
Wow.
So that was one of the. I think that's one of the like indicators that you're getting good at English.
Yeah.
And when I say good, of course, like not Band 9 good, but still good enough.
Could you tell me a bit more about like how much do you think you improved? Because the way you improved is clear. You were in the atmosphere, you were absorbing language, and you were also thinking.
Yeah, it doesn't happen immediately. It's not gonna be noticeable even after a year. You know, like we came back. Like for example, after I came back, I took the IELTS exam. I got 6.5, 6 for speaking. The point is they didn't used to give half scores. So yeah, it had to be for speaking and writing. It had to be either 6 or 7.
Yeah.
So probably they ended up giving me a 6. Plus, I was really new to the test, and I think what happened to me was I really like in my first year, I learned the accent. I think. My pronunciation got better, but I still needed some vocabulary and grammar, I think.
Definitely.
I think. And I wasn't really mature enough, I think, to answer some of the part 3 questions.
Yeah.
In a way. So, yeah. Like, I think when I was, like, before I went to the States, I was at a B1 level. So I came back with B2.
Yeah.
So it took me a year to improve my, like, English from B1 to B2.
I think the thing that's important.
But it laid the foundation.
Yeah, exactly. So what I want to say is that I feel like, I asked you that question not just because, I was expecting to see, he was Band 9 immediately when he came back, obviously.
No. It's not gonna happen.
I think that the main thing is, and this is something that maybe you guys can take home, is that this kind of progress is real progress with language.
Yeah.
It's not always about IELTS. If you really want to move to another country and you really want to be able to speak to people in another language, it's much more than just a score or a number. Real language comes when your brain has enough time to understand it and to really settle with it. And I think that's really the most valuable thing that you got out of the experience.
Yeah. Yes, you need the cultural references as well.
That's
and
definitely.
Because with language comes, culture as well. So you need to. I was lucky to be exposed to American culture, American, the media, so to speak, right? TV. I was watching a lot of movies. That was the beginning of the time I started listening to Eminem. Eminem played a huge role, I think, in my language as well, improvements. And then I got accepted to Westminster University in Tashkent. So the language of instruction was in English.
Yeah.
So, and then I did 4 years of that. A
lot of English around you.
And then I
took
took the test for the second time in 2011, 5 years after my first attempt, right?
Yeah.
So having graduated from Westminster University, I finally scored an 8, Band 8, with 7.5 in speaking,
That's
so
cool.
I think, over time, with my initial, first, this American experience, and then added with this Westminster experience, it kind of gave me the
I think it's like
necessary push towards.
It's not necessary for everybody to go through that same journey. Obviously, everyone has their own journeys, but it's really cool to see because you are the first Niner, and your journey is quite unique.
It's funny that you mentioned, because I was actually thinking about it a couple of days ago. I don't know why. Because, I know why. Because someone actually, I was at a store and someone recognized me and asked, like, okay, so how long does it take from, 0 to whatever, right? To a conversational level. And I was like, how conversational do you want to get?
That's a great question.
Do you want to have English enough to maybe survive out on the street? Like, can you survive in Uzbek? Like,
I definitely can in Uzbek and in Russian.
really? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So you can ask for food, right?
Absolutely.
Directions.
Absolutely.
Okay. All right. So my answer was like maybe 3 or 4 months. Like would be enough to get into that conversation.
To be able to be there,
to be able
like,
to kind of
survive.
ask for directions.
Exactly.
Yeah. Right. But if you want to get good enough to, I don't know, to study abroad or maybe to work, then you need
way longer.
at least a year, right, of preparation, language learning. So I was thinking about that, and then I start thinking about my own experience. Like, it took me years, not just 1 year, years, to get to this level. Not just to this level, but to get to the level, like even to get to like 6.5, it took me 5 or 6 years, I think.
Wow.
You know, like I was going to this specialized, like not lyceum, but school specialized in English and math, right? So we were having a lot of English classes. Of course, we were mostly doing grammar and translation and maybe a lot of vocabulary as well. But usually they're the words that you wouldn't really use.
Yeah.
And then everyday English. Right?
I think that really, like, to kind of cap everything off, it's great to mention that everyone's journey is unique. And not only is it about, like, the environment you're in, but also the emotional state that you find yourself in.
Yeah.
Because I feel like for a lot of people, if English is stressful for you, even if theoretically you get the score you want right now, I feel like for a lot of people that will not stick because the association with English is that it's stressful. So another thing is, I think, and this is going to piggyback to my next point, the next thing I want to say, I think that since English was associated and connected in your mind with good things, like for example, Eminem, you started listening to Eminem, it's the language, but it's also something you really like.
Exactly.
That's what caused you to now speak, and I assume for the rest of your life, speak at this level. I feel like even if you don't practice for a while, you're still going to be able to speak at this level. Maybe, you lose some vocabulary, some fluency, whatever, but the core will still be there. And so now,
that's a good point. That's a good
now
point,
I want to really come to the next thing, which is music. I think that music is the next great way to work on language acquisition.
So that's your second.
That's my second point. Yeah.
So I completely forgot.
Coming back to that. The structure is here. It's still
so
here, guys.
you too.
So
mine was thinking in English.
Thinking
and now,
and so the third one, this is also kind of for me more of a resource, right? So something that I recommend you guys to try. Listen to music in English. Now, there are some guidelines, right? The idea itself is very simple, right?
Yeah.
When I say guidelines, I don't mean like you can only listen to the music that I recommend, right?
Big Brother type.
Exactly.
Language,
I'm watching what music you're listening to. What I mean is, like, if you're trying to do this and you're really focused mainly on language improvement, I do want to give you some tips and some recommendations for how they could do that more easily. So I'd say, number one, focus on music. Obviously, it should be in English with lyrics. The lyrics should be understandable. If we're talking about Eminem, especially in the past, a lot of the words he would say were understandable. Even if it was difficult to understand what exactly they were at first, you had to like read through the lyrics. After some time, maybe you listen to the song 3 or 4 times, maybe 10 times.
Made sense, yeah.
You know what he's saying, and he's actually speaking the real language. He's not saying gibberish. He's not going, like some modern rappers are.
Modern
Rappers, exactly.
Yeah.
So I would say that that's the first thing. They should be speaking English, and it should be clear when you're listening to the music. That's number one. Number two, and this is more of a general recommendation. This is not going to fit all music. Try to find music with a simple and clear rhythm, because this actually helps you with getting the cadence right. Rap music, for example, it could be a good way to understand rhythm and rhyme structures. English is, in a lot of aspects, a very musical language. You might notice while we are talking, we have a lot of ups and downs. At some points, we're pausing. At some points, we're talking. A lot of people, maybe they listen to English speech just because it sounds kind of cool. And the same thing is like with French, for example. I sometimes listen to French and I say, wow, that's so beautiful. I don't understand a single word they're saying, completely just one ear out the other, but it sounds beautiful. So English is the same way in a lot of ways. So try to listen to music that has a clear rhythm that you can follow, even if you don't understand each of the words. And then finally, try to sing along. Try to rap together with the music. Try to use your voice as well. Even if, once again, you can't get every single word, it's a process. And I think this is a really cool resource for language acquisition.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. I just want to add to that, like this at the school that we were, learning English. Our teachers used to use music as well. I think they used to play Backstreet Boys because back in the day it was a huge thing, right? Backstreet Boys.
Because you're showing your age. I'm sorry.
Yeah. I grew up with Backstreet Boys. Show me the meaning, right? But anyway, so plus, it's not Eminem. Like, you don't really need to have a complex or like a very high level of English to understand Backstreet Boys.
Sing along. They want you to sing.
Beatles, Yesterday. It's the first song
Yeah.
that anybody learns to sing, right?
Definitely. Or Yellow Submarine.
Yellow Submarine, yeah. But Yesterday is more, I think,
popular, widespread.
More popular, globally, yeah. So it was a global hit. So anyway, Yesterday. And then you could kind of, work your way up to Eminem, in a way. And while you were talking, I remembered like one of the first Eminem songs that I used to, I think, memorize was When I'm Gone.
Really?
Yeah.
That's a good song.
Yeah, it is.
That's a good song. You know what my first one was? You're gonna be impressed. Rap God. That was the first one. I'm not
You're
lying.
also showing your age, man. Like, Rap God is like.
Okay.
To me, it was released yesterday. It was like.
That's fair. Well, I mean, the thing is, it's just it was the fastest song I knew at the time. It was when it came out, it was like
it's a cool show off,
exactly.
show offy song.
So I wanted to have that status. I wanted to be the guy who can do it. Yeah. So. Yeah.
Okay. No. When I'm Gone, Mockingbird, Lose Yourself. Right?
Classic.
Yeah. Little Toy Soldier. All of these like Eminem classics I used to listen to. Yeah. All right, music. All right, so now I think it's my turn to give you a tip, right? I probably now go back to my signature advice or tip. As I always stressed, the importance of reading. I think reading goes a long way. So I've converted this: an apple a day keeps keeps the doctor. So an article a day keeps your IELTS worries away, right? So you just have to find a way of reading on a daily basis. And to that end, I recently started sharing daily articles as well. Like, my channel. I used to do that with the IELTS Zones original Telegram channel. I think that's one of the reasons why it got kind of popular with students, right? So I'm not doing that now to get, again, popularity, but I feel like if I could somehow, what I'm doing now is, back in the day I was just sharing for the sake of sharing.
Yeah.
But now what I'm doing is I'm trying to share the articles that I'm reading on a daily basis.
Oh.
Okay, so because I have this habit of reading at least a couple of articles every day. I don't know why, I just, I need to get my information.
Yeah.
And reading is one of the ways that I feed my brain. So
I gotta mention one thing, or like ask. So where do you actually get the articles? Not I don't want you to spin your
just browsing the internet. Like okay, so I could be scrolling Instagram.
Yeah.
And then I don't know. You come across some interesting reel, and then you want to do some research, right?
Yeah.
Homework, and then you get the article. The
Yeah.
article usually provides, more detailed information on that reel. So, and then I end up, for example, yesterday I was watching this. They showed this distorted, disfigured face of a girl who got like basically attacked by a pit bull.
Yeah.
So it kind of hit me emotionally, and then I searched for more information on pit bulls because and then I found this very nice article. Basically, it had a lot of good language for Task One as well because it was like statistics on
about
like
pit bull attacks.
Dog attacks. And then I took the article, I read it, and then I put it on a very nice PDF format and shared it on my channel. Yeah.
I think it's really funny that unless you do specifically that, there's about a 0% chance you will ever encounter regular Task One vocabulary in your life.
Exactly.
Unless you specifically seek out information about statistics. But anyway, I wanted to say that I really like that you use or share the articles that are the ones that you have found.
Right.
And the ones that are like related
that speak to me. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
And when you were mentioning the articles that you're finding, I kind of realized that I read articles every single day, but they're way different. Usually, I'm reading instructionals. Like something will break and I'll have to look up how to fix it, and that's what I'm reading. And I realized that to some extent that actually is also reading, because I get my new vocabulary from those places.
Exactly.
If I find new vocabulary, it's not going to be in like an article about statistics. I know all of those words. What I don't know are the technical terms related to specific things. So I guess that would be like the next step, right? Like
once you get better, maybe.
Exactly. Yeah, that's interesting detail.
Okay. Yeah. You want to keep going?
I guess we can stop there. That's enough free material for you guys. I think that's enough. Yeah.
4 things, right?
Exactly. So yeah, I think that those 4 things are really cool for acquisition. But now I think we gotta move on to our
yesterday
new guest.
You mentioned yesterday you mentioned something about the U.S. Army programs. So maybe we could kind of it would be a logical continuation into language immersion.
You're right. Let me kind of talk a bit about that. There's a lot of detail because I actually watched that video again, and there's like a lot of stuff
to talk about that. You think?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, it's not a top secret thing.
No. Yeah, we're not going to jail. Not yet. Not yet.
Not jail.
There was a guy in the video who actually was disclosing this information because he was in the program.
Yeah.
But they had him like blurred out. So hopefully we won't go to jail.
Nothing happens.
Yeah, we'll see.
Yeah.
So I don't remember all of the specific terms, but if you guys are interested, you can just look up like U.S. Army language program. You'll find it. It's like one video. It has like 6 million.
Right? It's about
It's about immersion. So here's what the program is about. You have people that are working for you that need to learn a language, and it needs to happen quickly, and they need to be able to speak very well, near fluent level. If it's fluent, perfect. If not, that's what it is.
Yeah.
So what they do is they take these people and they drop them into a full-time program. The hours, I actually read up on that. It's 7 hours per day, 5 days per week. So not something that necessarily everybody can do, but keep in mind, they are going from zero. Not only zero in terms of that language, but actually most of those people, they're like 17, 16, 18.
Okay.
They are people who are just enlisted in the army. And not only do they have no life experience, because they're basically small babies, but also they have never learned any other language.
Right.
Everybody who's listening to this podcast,
right?
me and you, Americans, on average, I'm sorry, they're kind of dumb, man.
Yeah.
We don't learn enough language. They teach us in high school.
A.
We forget.
Sorry.
That's
I have to show it off. I had to like.
Yoke. Yoke.
Exhibit A is a nice. Can you?
Exhibit A because Alex. Alex.
Yeah.
So anyway, long story short, they took these people, or they take these people, and they drop them in for 7 hours a day, 5 days a week.
Yeah.
That's by the way, that's only the study time. There's also other extra stuff that they're doing. Okay. So they're studying for 7 hours a day.
That's like in classroom, like they're taking classes.
Exactly.
Right?
So they get 10-minute breaks every hour. It's not like 7 hours in a row. It's basically like school. They get a lesson about culture. They get a lesson about the grammar. They get a lesson about speaking, writing, etc., etc. And
all different aspects of the language.
Everything.
Yeah.
But what's really interesting to me is the additional work that they do. And there's one thing that was called, I think it was called ISO immersion. So what ISO immersion is something that I've always dreamed about doing. It's always been my dream to organize this kind of language practice. Here's what it is. ISO means isolation.
Okay.
Immersion means obviously immersion. What they do is they take a group of students. So let's say they have like their class that are learning Russian. They're American English speakers that are learning Russian.
Okay.
They take these people and they take them away for 3 or 4 days. And they put them into this specific environment designed as like a boot camp, basically. So this will happen maybe 3 or 4 times throughout their whole practice, throughout their whole program. And they will have specific goals. So for example, they're going to be at an airport. They have to get in through the check-in.
Right.
Everybody is speaking Russian. There is no English available. They're not speaking to each other in English. They're not speaking to the native speakers who are presented as like, let's say the guards.
Right.
And there will be some variables that are changed, some things that they have to work with. So for example, one of the guards is pissed off at them because they don't have the right documents. Or, somebody broke something. So in all these kinds of situations,
they try to create the situations, right, as real as possible.
The real atmosphere of that situation and the real necessity. They have to figure out what's wrong, or else I mean, you know, nothing's going to happen.
Because
but
sometimes the language that you're learning, especially if it's like your second language, just goes out the window, right?
Exactly.
Like,
you don't need it.
When
you
you're
don't use
anxious, nervous,
Exactly. So since they are obviously in the army, they have to use the language in high stress situations.
Yeah.
So in order to prepare for that, they already put them into high stress situations.
Okay.
And the coolest thing is, let me kind of put the pin in the cap. I think I already used that phrase, and I think I used it incorrectly. Anyway, to really put the cherry on top, they do this for 3 or 4 days in a row. There's no break. So they wake up, they go to the airport, they talk about that, they do that, they go to the bazaar, they go buy some stuff, they haggle in Russian, they go somewhere else. That's day one. They go to sleep, they wake up the next day, boom, boom, boom, other situations. So that's the coolest thing. This is what we're kind of talking about when we're mentioning immersion and acquisition. The environment that you're putting yourself in should force you to switch. If you are in that environment and you're thinking in English, or I mean for them thinking in English, let's say theoretically for you, you're thinking in Uzbek or in Russian, you have failed. You must switch. You must have that trigger in your mind. Like Begzod said, he was sitting there thinking in English in an environment where everyone is talking in English. That's the real secret. That's the real secret sauce. Absolutely. Absolutely. So yeah, that's the program. If you have any more questions, I could give you some more details about it. I actually figured out that unfortunately it's way longer than I thought. It's minimally 36 months, which is, no, 36 weeks, which is like...
how many hours? Because in
months.
ESL, it's mostly
7 hours per day.
into 7 hours a day, 36 weeks. So,
do the math. Do the math right now. Go. Do the math.
All right. Yeah.
He has.
I'm at gunpoint now.
He has band 9 for writing task 1. He has to do the mathematics.
32. 32 weeks times 7, right? 32 times 7. You get what?
7 hours per day.
7 hours per. No, I'm because it's weeks. I'm.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, multiplying 7 because 7 days a week. Right. 32. So it's about 210 days. 210 multiplied by 7. So roughly it's about 1,500 hours.
I can't find my calculator, so he is correct. That is the right
1,500 hours. I think now if you could kind of calculate that, and if you could like somehow maybe, because there's, if you Google, can you Google guided hours? Cambridge guided hours for language learning. So I think it should be about 3,000 hours. Like,
I'm looking it up, but my Wi-Fi isn't working very well.
Okay, all right. So let me see. Cambridge guided hours.
Cambridge guided hours. I think I know what you're talking about. It's like the basically minimal amount of hours required
to get to a certain level.
Yeah.
So guided learning. So it's called guided learning hours. Guided learning hours. For C2, okay, the math checks out. Math checks out.
How many hours?
1,000 to 1,200 hours. So 1,000 to 1,200 hours.
I see.
Okay, so that's C2 level.
That makes sense. So as I said, their goal is to get somebody to speak fluently. And obviously the thing is, and this is something that a lot of the people who graduate, they say, it feels like drinking from a fire hose. The thing that you use to get the fire out of buildings. It's like drinking from that.
Because it's like, there's a lot of pressure.
Exactly. And you're not able to take everything in. You're not able to get all of those things.
Because it's just, most of the water goes sideways.
To get to C2, most people would require that amount of hours spread out over a long period of time. So they condense that and they try their best to get somebody to C2. Most likely.
But still, 36, you said 36 weeks, right? So, okay.
Well, that's actually, so as I said, that's the minimal amount. That's for learning languages like, let's say, Portuguese, Spanish, and I think French.
It depends on the type of language.
So for Russian, it's actually, I think, somewhere around 48 weeks. And for Arabic, it's 64 weeks.
Yeah, because you got different alphabets.
Absolutely.
Now, let's switch our focus from language learning, language acquisition to technology, right? What do you think? About the role of technology down the line in the future, especially given what we have, AI, ChatGPT? Do you think it's going to affect in any way? Do you think it's going to be helpful for students, or do you think it's going to be maybe it will have an opposite effect?
Maybe AI will destroy students and there will be no more students. There will be nobody. We don't know.
No, the point I'm trying to, I think, get to is now we have, for example, I think it could be there already. We have live translations, right? I think in a
More
way.
or less.
So,
I think so.
like 5 years down the line, I mean, this could be happening, right? You don't really, like, you could be basically talking to someone.
So I think it's really interesting to first break down AI by itself.
Okay.
Because the thing is, when you bring in like education into the mix, we have a lot of contentious things, right? Like we're both teachers. And I mean,
AI replacing teachers.
yeah,
right?
it's kind of scary. You know, I feel kind of scared. So I don't want to speak.
AI replacing
immediately.
examiners. All right, oshimizga endi hali qilamiz. Oshga chiqib kelaylik endi.
Wow, this is going to be beautiful.
Okay.
Wow.
Choyxona oshmi endi bu?
Wow. That's fantastic. It even has the bone in.
All right, Alex. So you've been in Uzbekistan for how long? You've been living here for 5 years now.
At this point, it's been 5 years. I think going on 6.
Okay. All right. So you've been here for 5 years, 5-6 years. So you must picked up some Uzbek, right?
So I've acquired a lot of Uzbek. I have not learned any Uzbek. That's something that I'm struggling
You never
with.
took classes.
Exactly.
But you just picked up some language along the way.
I have Uzbek everywhere, and sometimes during lessons, we'll be like teaching something, and it would be appropriate for me to explain that word in a more simple way. In some situations, you can't have a long explanation. You just gotta explain, right? Like you're talking about garlic,
Yeah.
you gotta say, that's saram sok. You just gotta say it.
Yeah.
So I'll ask the students what that word means, and a lot of those words have kind of stuck. You know, especially the
Okay.
basic ones.
Yeah. Okay.
That's kind of my level. My grammar is non-existent. Like if you ask me any of the conjugations, any of the proper
So
particles,
some basic words, right?
the words level is where I'm at, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So we're gonna start with the teapot. How do you say teapot in Uzbek?
Oh, so I think I know the Russian word for it. I think I know the Russian words for
Okay.
most of these things, but I think there's a classic Uzbek word for it. Well, the place where you drink tea is called choyxona, right?
Exactly.
So is that word connected or not?
Kinda.
Kinda?
Well, because you know the word for okay. Let's start off with the word tea then.
Okay.
What's
is it
the Uzbek word for
choy?
tea? Choy.
You have
exactly.
kok choy, which is black. And
No, kuk choy is the green tea.
oh, really?
Yeah, kuk.
What's black tea?
Qora choy.
Oh man, you're right. Yeah. Kok choy and kora choy. Okay,
Yeah,
great.
yeah,
I
yeah,
see.
Okay.
Okay.
Qora means black.
Okay.
Kuk means blue, or so in this case. So that's funny because for the word green, we actually say blue tea. So kuk choy. Kuk
Really?
means blue. Yeah.
Wow,
yeah,
that's interesting.
It's probably a cultural thing. I don't know. Maybe we didn't have the word green in Uzbek.
Yeah,
like,
exactly. Yeah. That's cool. That's cool. Kok choy. It's blue tea.
Yeah.
When you're talking about blue things like this, for example, would you say that that's like
Cook,
called-
yeah, that's cool.
Wow,
Yeah.
that's really cool.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
I've heard of
It's
like
got a
some
lot of
cultures.
shades of blue, right? Like
Yeah.
you got light blue, sky blue.
Green could be in some situations, like if you look at it, a kind of green.
It's similar
Yeah.
along those lines, right? Yeah. So it's kuk choy. In some regions, they call it ok choy.
Ok choy, really?
Yeah, it's white tea, ok choy. For example,
Oh.
where I come from, no, that's not about the alcohol that we're talking about.
Oh,
In
okay.
Tashkent, it could be, but in Fergana Valley, we say ok choy because if you look at it, like sometimes when you
looks
have, when you don't have, like maybe, when it's not strong enough, it looks whitish,
see.
whiter, right, so to speak. So that's why,
That
hence
makes sense.
that white tea, ok choy. And anyway, choy is the tea, and what is a teapot?
Okay, so now that we've kind of built that up, in Russian, I'm pretty sure it's Russian, it's chaynik, right?
So it came from Uzbek.
No way.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah,
Are
because
you
they don't have
sure?
the word choy.
Well, I mean, the thing is, in Indian, you also have chai,
Maybe, but in Uzbek it's choynek.
choynek.
Yeah.
I see. Oh,
So chaynik, choynek.
choynek.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. So when I'm talking about like being able to communicate in Uzbek, I think a lot of it is just because Uzbek and Russian are so similar.
Yeah,
Yeah.
most of these words.
I guess I probably made the right bet because I was deciding, am I going to be really heavy into Uzbek or am I going to learn Russian and Uzbek together? And I guess it paid off because a lot of these words are similar. Like what do you call this?
The table or
The table, the table.
yeah. The table. What do you call it? Like, what do you think it's called in Uzbek?
Stol?
Stol. Yeah.
Yeah, STOL.
Stol. Yeah.
Yeah,
Stol,
and the
yeah.
chair?
Stool. Yeah, yeah, but if you want to like use the proper Uzbek.
Oh, I know it.
Yeah.
Dasturkhan.
Dasturkhan is the
Oh,
tablecloth.
no.
Tablecloth.
I was so close. But that's still a pretty good word.
No,
That's
it
like
is. It is great. Dasturkhan is a great word.
Dasturkhan,
Yeah,
yeah.
Dasturkhan. Yeah.
What about the table then?
The traditional in a traditional Uzbek setting, it would be hon takhta.
Hon takhta.
Yeah.
Wow.
Hon
What
takhta.
does hon mean?
Hon is just, when you add this, like usually it's like an addition to like names, especially girls' names, like Nigara Hon. What do you want to say? And by the way, I think it's not even girls like. Is it the suffix, right?
Yeah.
It's actually, it comes from Hon, means king back in the day.
Oh.
So like in English, I think they translated it into cans, right? Like in Uzbek, like history, like for example, Kokon Honlig, Honlik.
Okay.
Honlik is like canets, I think. Canets. Like, let me check out.
I have no idea.
Really?
that's
so you have to learn Uzbek.
That's like way out of my league. Yeah,
okay.
I haven't gotten to the history part of this course yet. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So here, that's the word.
Oh, Kanet. Like the before Uzbekistan was like a country. It was Khans basically.
Yeah. So that's Han comes from that word.
Oh, that makes sense.
So it's takhta means basically. It's like a board, like what do you call that?
Like a piece of wood?
Wood board, yeah.
Oh, so
right?
Hon takhta
is like a king of the
Wow, that's fantastic.
Yeah,
that's really cool.
Yeah.
That's honestly, that's like way cooler than Latin. Latin is just like a bunch of words, and then you learn them, and maybe it's interesting, not cool.
Yeah.
Hon takhta is the thing. That's awesome.
Yeah, it's
the king of the boards.
Yes,
and it's a table.
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
Hon
wow.
takhta.
Hon takhta.
Like probably those Hans used to sit, and they called, it's a Hon takhta. I don't know. That's beautiful. It's beautiful, right?
That's really cool. That is fantastic. Yeah. You learn something new every day, and I'm learning a lot today.
So that's, but this is more like, it's not a Hon takhta. Hon takhta is,
the one
usually
that
you have to sit on the floor. Yeah, you have to be sitting on the floor, right? On a mat.
Is that the one where you have like a table
four,
like
four
that?
legs? Yeah.
Yeah, and then you sit down, like you put your legs under it. What is that called? I forgot the name for it. It's like a style of.
You must be thinking about. What are you thinking about? Basically?
Like when you go to a Chorhana, they will have places with tables where you sit and eat like this.
Yeah,
and you have places where you like. That's called hon takhta?
Yeah, that's the hon takhta. Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah,
wow.
This is a regular table. Yeah, stol.
This is not the king.
No, that's not the king.
This was created by British people.
Yeah, that's stol.
Invaders, exactly. That's a stol. Yeah, that's it. Not cool. Not cool. Do you guys have words for like newer technological stuff that are like natively Uzbek words? Like for example, what would you call this?
Oh yeah, no. I think we have to use the English or the Russian or the universal word for it. I think. Yeah.
Maybe your video guys know. Do they have any idea? What do they call this? What do you call this, guys? Grip.
No, because of this.
Yeah, because of the grip. Yeah, that
grip.
makes sense. It would be cool if there was. Yeah. That's the same thing they do with Japanese, because a lot of Japanese words are really old. Most Japanese are really old. So if they have any new words like a microphone or this thing, they would be using the English version of it, but they
add
their own pronunciation
like
to it.
ice cream. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. No, for example, the word airport, right? In Uzbek, like we usually say airport, aeroport, just like in Russian.
Okay.
So it's very, but in actual Uzbek, it's back in the day when I was at school, they used to teach us these words.
Really?
We never used them. It's like most of these guys wouldn't know, I think.
What is it? I'm excited.
Aeroport, Uzbekçesi bilasın?
They don't know. They don't know. What is it? I'm ready. Hit me with it. It's gonna be something like hon takhta. It's gonna be something fantastic. The king.
All right,
of
so we
air.
have to go with the plane first.
Okay.
So what is plane in Uzbek, right?
Okay.
So we usually say the Russian one, the samolyot, right?
Yeah.
Uzbekçesi? Uçak is one of the words. Uçak because it's like comes from the word fly.
Okay.
Right? Something that flies. Uçak.
Okay.
But in when I was at school, they used to teach us this word as tayyara.
Airport
Tayyara.
or plane?
Plane.
Plane is tayyara.
Tayyara. It's like sayyara is a planet.
Wow.
right? So tayyara is plane.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
What does that come from? What is the
I
root
have
of
no
that?
idea. Tayyara. So,
Cool.
but tayyar means ready. I don't know.
Okay.
So tayyara was a plane, right? It's an old, again, very old-fashioned
Yeah.
Uzbek, so no one uses the word tayyara.
Does the
So
final
then-
word have anything to do with hon? Or sorry, not hon. Hona?
Hona is a great, Hona is a great word, yeah, but no, not
Oh.
tayyara Hona, not tayyara Hona.
That would
right?
be cool. That would
yeah,
be cool.
but it's very similar. Tayyara Goh.
Tayyara goh.
Yeah, so it's airport. Tayyara
Wow.
Goh.
What does goh mean?
It's something to do with Tayyara Goh. Sail Goh. We say sail. So
Oh, I heard Sail
place, park. Sail Goh is
Oh.
park. So it's like a place
Park.
of. Place
Wow.
of.
Place of
Tayyara
planes.
Goh.
That's
Place of
fantastic.
planes. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's really cool. So I mean, I assume you're not like
We don't say it. Like you don't
Yeah.
go out and say Tayyara Goh or Tayyara.
I am
Like-
going to specifically start saying that every day. From now on my channel, I'll be saying only that word every day at the beginning of the day at 9 a.m. Tayyara goh, right there, boom, boom, every day. That's
Yeah,
cool.
Tayyara Goh, and then you put a
I
little
should.
picture.
And a picture of like different
Little
planes each
planes,
day
yeah,
to
yeah. Yeah.
vary it up. So I mean, like you're not a Uzbek scholar, right? Like you know Uzbek on a deeper level than I guess most people do because you learned it in school.
I used to
in the
read a
past.
lot. I mean,
Oh.
I loved reading books. I remember reading
In Uzbek?
Yeah, in Uzbek. Yeah, for example, there's this very kind of a thick novel called İki Eşik Orası. Can you try to translate that into English? İki Eşik Orası.
Okay. I have a question real quick. Ishik.
Ishik.
Is that to do with Ishak? No? No. I'm
No,
sorry.
no.
That's my guess. I'm sorry.
All right, okay.
Eşek.
But Eşek is very okay. Eşek is
Similar?
Is it? No, no,
Similar
of course
thought?
not.
No?
No.
I mean, it sounds
Ishik.
similar, but
You-
Ishik. Okay.
Ishik.
So what does Ishik mean?
Eşik means the door.
The door. Okay, so iki means two.
Okay, two.
Two doors.
Orası.
Orası.
Orası.
I mean, the last word is a verb. Two doors are opened or open.
It
or
just means
closed?
between.
Oh, between two doors.
Between the two doors.
Between two doors.
yeah.
Okay. So the last word, is that a verb or not?
No, it's an adverb.
Oh, okay,
Okay,
okay,
yeah.
makes sense.
It's a book
Okay.
title. İki
That's
Eşik Orası.
cool.
Yeah. So it's again referring to life and death. So the book was referring to İki Eşik Orası.
That sounds
You're
quite
born-
deep.
you're
So was
born
it
and-
originally written in Uzbek?
Yes,
Wow.
it's by Utkir Hashimov, one of my favorite Uzbek writers. I read this book. It's a thick,
When you were 10.
thick 12,
Oh,
thick
whoa.
ass book. It's like in 3 days. I finished it in 3 days,
That's a flex. That's crazy. Wow.
and I would have my the sheep out in the fields, and I would have my book. I was a very nerdy kid.
What,
I was
really?
yeah.
Wow.
So I think it was a summer vacation thing, right? And it wasn't assigned to us. I wasn't like supposed to read
just
that
wanted
book.
to.
I just wanted
That's
to.
epic. You were kind of like the main character of The Alchemist. You had a really thick book.
Yeah, with the
So-
sheep out.
so
yeah.
You had a really thick book, so you'd sleep well that night because you could put on your.
Exactly. That's
fantastic.
that's a
really
great
cool.
description. That's a
Yeah.
great description.
Wow.
So I finished that book in 3 days. I doubt that I would be able to do that
Wow.
now. You know, given the circumstances, and you don't have really much time.
Obviously.
But as a 12-year-old kid, I finished the book, and it was, it's got a lot of twists in the story,
Yeah.
and so you want to get to the end of it, bottom of it. So yeah, it was really gripping story, right?
I
couldn't
want to
really-
say just one thing. I
Yeah.
want to go a bit off topic.
Yeah.
I think it's really funny because you asked, is technology going to help students or not? I feel like the absence of technology in your case really helped you to read this book because maybe you wanted to, of course, but if you had other things that
devices
you
to keep me busy.
that were like
yeah.
10,000 times more engaging, you probably
Yeah.
would never put all of your concentration into a book. 'Cause
Exactly.
That's the entertainment you had. You did that for fun because you wanted to, because that's what gave you like.
I needed to keep myself busy, right? I needed
Exactly.
to distract myself
And students
because it's a
don't have
very
that problem
boring
anymore.
thing when your sheep is, when you're feeding your sheep, like they're eating grass and you just have to watch,
Yeah.
sit there and watch until they're done, right?
Yeah.
It takes like 2-3 hours sometimes. So I needed my book.
Yeah.
I had that book. I was sitting there by Arik, right?
Yeah, that's the
Arak
hole
Boye.
in the ground where the water
yeah.
goes. Yeah.
Yeah.
In the villages, they actually use that to transport water, don't they?
Yes. Yeah.
I feel like in the city they put them like either out of tradition or because
draining,
for
drainage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's like the weirdest drains I've ever seen. It's just like an open drain. You know,
Yeah.
you're walking, you don't see it, you're gone. You're inside.
Yeah, because
it.
even in cities, you have gardens, right? You grow trees, so you need some way of getting the water. And
Yeah.
I think that's one way.
That's fair.
So anyway, Ikishigarase was the book that I read. One of the first book. Well, it wasn't the first book I read, but it was one of the first serious books that I read.
Yeah.
And then I came back to that book when I was in my early 20s. It gave me the whole, I got whole different stuff from the book. My second
That's the
second time
coolest
reading.
thing. Reading
And
the
then
same book
I
again,
reread
yeah.
it like in my early 30s. Now I'm planning to do it sometime in the future just to see.
Totally make it a public thing. I mean, I assume that the book is kind of personal to you, but it'd be kind of cool to see you as like, I don't know, like Santa of books. You know, you're just like giving out all these things from the book. I feel like these kinds of books teach you a lot.
Yeah, they do. They do. Speaking of books, have you read 1984?
George Orwell?
Yeah.
Is it George Orwell?
It is, yeah.
It is George Orwell.
1984.
There's also Fahrenheit 4.
That's like
by Bradbury, Ray Bradbury.
Yes. Like those two classics.
I have read the summary. I have not read the full book. Unfortunately, I should.
I understand.
I read Animal Farm in school.
Anyway, are you subscribed to Audible? Do you use Audible?
I use YouTube actually. I get free audiobooks on YouTube by stealing them.
Here's the thing. You talked about immersive learning, right? When it comes to language learning. Recently, Audible released this was I think this 2024 release this Audible original of 1984 immersive experience. So you get a movie, like audio movie.
Wow, that's cool.
You got the actors like Tom Hardy, like all the British actors basically doing the voices.
That's crazy.
And you listen to this book. It's like immersive experience. You got the background noise. You got the train noises.
It's not really an audiobook. It's like just like a full experience. It's like a movie but without the visual.
Yes,
that's cool.
So I was listening to. I finished the whole thing in like a couple of days.
Wow, how was it?
It was great.
From 1 to 10. Give it a rating from 1 to 10. Honest rating.
I'm 8.5. Probably 8 plus. The experience.
That's a pretty good score. Yeah. Most people, they give out 10s too easily, so I'd say 8, 8.5 is like a nice
Coming
score.
from me, I think that was really, like the experience itself was really great. You know, like it just puts you in there. Like I started feeling like I was one of those people living in those dark, periods.
Yeah.
You know the whole story of the 1984, right? Yeah. So it just, you feel like you're in that period. We could be in that period.
We might be very soon.
No, that Big Brother. That's why I was referring to the Big Brother. Wow, it was really scary.
That sounds cool. That's something I'm gonna do. I'm gonna do that now.
You have to try
I assume I could probably find it online for free instead of subscribing to
but it's
Audible.
a pretty new thing. So
that sounds really cool. Though I feel like I don't know. I feel like it's a no-brainer to do that. I feel like they have started.
They should have done it like a long time ago. You think, right?
Yeah, I mean.
But would it spoil the the reading reading physical books, or maybe even just listening to the audiobooks, like regular audiobooks? I don't know. Like,
would it spoil it?
Like, I mean, when I say spoil it, well, like, would it like kind of make you want to listen to more of this stuff instead of just regular audiobooks?
I feel like it could be more of like a gateway drug. I feel like a lot of people never read at all. Like the only time they open a book is when they are forced at gunpoint to do so, like I forced you. And I think that this could be a way for people who've never touched books to actually get into that. Like these kinds of experiences, obviously, maybe people who are into audiobooks, maybe they would be less satisfied with regular audiobooks afterwards. But I feel like it's the effect for people who never read.
Maybe
would be massive.
Yeah.
That's what
it was great. It was a great storytelling.
Really cool. I'm jealous. I'm gonna do that literally when I get home today.
Oh no! Especially with 1984, the music. They actually wrote like special music
That's
for this
really cool.
experience.
And
right?
do they have different ones as well, like Audible originals like that?
different
oh,
books
okay,
as well,
okay,
yeah.
I see. How long have they been doing that? Do you have any idea?
I don't know. This year they started this year, I think.
Dude, I gotta.
So with
Audible.
and they use this new technology, Dolby Atmos, I think it's called, with this 8K,
Do you have, like, a
8D
speaker setup
audio,
on that?
right? Yeah, like I'm listening to. You have to listen to it like with your headphones and so the voices around.
Yeah, from like different directions. Yeah. That's cool. Maybe we could like give students a snippet of that at some point.
Yeah, we should.
That'd
Definitely.
be cool.
Yeah,
That'd be cool.
but yeah. Ho'p, bugungi demak podkastimiz ham juda ham qiziqarli bo'ldi va afsuski vaqtimiz kamligi uchun shu yerda to'xtatishga majbur bo'lyapmiz. Aslida boshqa mavzularga ham kirmoqchi edik. Lekin menimcha juda ham qiziqarli, o'sha kerakli bo'lgan, foydali bo'lgan informatsiyalar bilan menimcha sizlarga yetkiza oldik deb o'ylayman. O'sha informatsiyalarni boshdan boshlab misol uchun o'sha recap qiladigan bo'lsak, dastavval o'sha language learning bilan language acquisition o'rtasidagi farqni gaplashdik. Native speakerlar, non-native speakerlar tilni qanaqa o'rganadi. Undan keyin Alex bilan men har bittamiz ikkitadan o'sha maslahatlar berdik. O'sha ingliz tilini aynan misol uchun o'sha tilga sho'ng'igan holda o'rganish uchun. Demak, birinchi o'sha Alex YouTube haqida gapirgan bo'lsa, men o'sha ingliz tilida o'ylash haqida maslahat berdim. Keyin Alex esinglarda bo'lsa, musiqa eshitish bo'yicha ketgan bo'lsa, o'sha qo'shiqlarni ingliz tilida misol uchun tinglash, keyin men reading haqida, ya'ni har kun bitta maqola o'qish haqida. Umuman olganda juda ham bir nima desa bo'ladi, fun experience bo'ldi. Juda ham bitta endi ham hozir inglizcha gapirib turganimiz uchun 100% o'zbekchalik qilish qiyinroq. So, Alex, thank you for joining in.
Sure.
Feel free. Yeah.
I wanted to say thank you so much for inviting me. It was really fun to chat about all stuff.
So, just to recap in English, right?
Yeah.
We talked about language learning and language acquisition, and you talked about the U.S. Army program of immersion.
Yeah,
right?
the same thing we're talking about.
Learning.
Yeah.
And then we gave 4 different tips, right? And recently you did what, like 12-hour stream, right? 12-hour stream about basically what do you do during this?
So I did a 12-hour live stream. It was like, John Lee Efir. And it was it was on Sunday. It was this Sunday. So that's like, like 3 days ago. And for 12 hours from 10 a.m. until 10 p.m., I was online talking to students. I had like 1 or 2 breaks and I was talking to students and giving them IELTS speaking answers from the Speaking Assistant app. I was answering all the questions, giving them like all the best vocab and all that kind of stuff. So right now, I'm actually sharing the recordings from that session on my channel, which you'll be able to find in the description. So if you guys are interested in that, if you want to follow or learn more about me, feel free to go down in the description. It's Alex Native IELTS.
All right, yeah. Alex.
That's about it.
Buldu mu?
Native
Done?
IELTS. Bulda. That's
Buldu?
it. Together.
Yeah, okay.
Together.
Good.